This will be a lesson on the psychology of success. And we're going to map out this territory with this concept map here. Notice success is sort of in the middle here. So we want to consider some of the psychological factors that can contribute to success or diminish the chances for success. Let's note, first of all, a couple of key psychological concepts. We have intelligence, conformity, conscientiousness, motivation, executive control systems, self-esteem, the use of study strategies, interest in the subject, prior knowledge, the experience of struggling during the learning process. All of these factors are interrelated, and they can have an impact on the chances of success. So this looks complicated. There are lots of psychological factors, but that's kind of good news, because then there are more ways to adjust our attitudes and our ways of thinking and our behaviors so as to achieve success. Let's start with the first concept of intelligence. We previously defined that as the ability to learn and remember and to solve problems, etc. And we might consider what you find on IQ tests as a way of getting a grip on how do psychologists think about intelligence. Well, there are two kinds of intelligence that psychologists recognize. Crystallized intelligence, measured by things like basic knowledge and vocabulary and reading comprehension and doing exercises where you're looking for similarities or arithmetic. And these are the kinds of questions where your success depends on you knowing something. You have learned something and you know some information. Psychologists call that crystallized intelligence. But then there's another section of an IQ test where you have picture completion tasks, block design, picture arrangement, coding. These kinds of tasks require that you hold information in mind in your working memory system and manipulate information. And so this kind of task, psychologists say, measures fluid intelligence, the ability to manipulate and analyze and to rearrange information in your mind. So IQ tests are sort of measuring two kinds of what we call intelligence. There's an interesting pattern in the development of these different forms of intelligence over time. You'll notice crystallized intelligence, as we get older, it can increase because we're learning more things. We know more things. Fluid intelligence tends to decline with age. And again, this is thought to be because the brain systems that give us the working memory capacities to hold information in mind and manipulate information and to search our memory and bring up just the relevant facts, those systems can decline over time as we age. So while aging allows us to accumulate more knowledge, aging has a negative effect on the brain systems that underlie fluid intelligence. But let's end on a positive note, and let's go back to crystallized intelligence. Notice it can increase. So we can increase our intelligence by learning things, but we have to do that. We have to learn things over the course of our lives, and that will increase this one aspect of intelligence. All right, let's return to our concept map. Notice the three concepts at the top here. These are the three that we encountered in the lesson on signaling theory, that grades are a signal. What are they signaling? They're signaling our intelligence, our level of conformity, our conscientiousness. Because the way traditional grading systems work, there are homework grades and classwork grades and participation grades that are capturing dimensions of conscientiousness and conformity. And intelligence, of course, will help us learn and remember the course content. So these were the three factors that were being signaled by our grades. But now let's take a look at the arrows that we see on this concept map and see how some of these concepts relate to each other. All right, first, let's remember the definitions here. Intelligence, the ability to learn, remember, problem solve. Conformity, concern for social expectations. Conscientiousness, good work ethic, care about quality work. Motivation, a desire or willingness to do something. And of course, good study strategies. And we will learn about them in the subsequent lessons. Okay, let's take intelligence. Now notice there's an arrow from intelligence to success. So the idea is that our level of intelligence is going to have an impact on the likelihood of success. Higher intelligence would likely cause a greater chance of success. Lower intelligence, the opposite. So we're going to say intelligence is promoting or causing success. Notice also, though, there's another line going down to good study strategies. So here the idea is individuals with higher intelligence may see the value of using the good study strategies as a way of promoting success. Perhaps individuals with lower intelligence they're going to use the old techniques they've been using and aren't really concerned about whether they're effective or not. Take conformity, concern for social expectations. Well, if teachers recommend certain good study strategies, then students high in conformity are going to use those good study strategies because they want to meet the expectations of the teacher. Students with high conformity are also going to be more motivated because the society, our parents and teachers are expecting us to do our best in school and learn as much as we can. So a concern for social expectations then is going to be a positive, it will have a positive impact on success. It'll make us more likely to use the recommended study strategies. As well, it will increase our motivation to do well because that's what the people around us are expecting from us, to do our best, to learn what we can in school. Now, motivation here, notice the link between motivation and good study strategies. Here, the idea is if you're motivated to learn, then that will promote the search for the best study strategies to give you the best chance of success. And what about conscientiousness, the good work ethic, care about quality work? Well, if you have high conscientiousness, well, that is going to increase your motivation. You care about doing the good work. You have a good work ethic. You're going to engage with the learning process. So notice then conscientiousness and conformity, they're going to be impacting motivation. And increasing motivation is going to be positive for success. It's going to give us that drive to want to do well in school. And if we can find those good study strategies, then these study strategies will have a direct impact on the likelihood of success. All right, now let's consider self-esteem. And self-esteem, you may have a general understanding of that. It's just sort of how we evaluate ourselves within our social group. Well, psychologists sort of break it down into two sort of clusters of characteristics. Initiative, so individuals with high self-esteem, they have confidence and they can take initiatives for doing things in their lives, taking on challenges. And part of the flip side of that, why high self-esteem individuals will take on challenges, is that they have a good feeling about themselves. They feel good about themselves, that even if something is difficult, that won't trigger negative thoughts about the self. So because they have these good feelings, they're not threatened by momentary failures when you take on a difficult task. So self-esteem in general is just sort of our view of ourselves in our community, in our social group. And if we have high self-esteem, that is considered to be a positive characteristic. It, as we'll see in a moment, it has a positive impact on some of these other psychological factors related to success. Notice we're showing the arrow between success and self-esteem here with the word increases. So when we achieve success in school, get the A on the test or whatever the project, that tends to increase our self-esteem. We feel better about ourselves and our capabilities. Let's just quickly look at how psychologists measure self-esteem. They typically give people a whole bunch of questions that are related to these four dimensions here of social life. Are you popular and likable? Are you competent? Are you good looking? Are you morally good? So there's a whole bunch of questions, and then they come up with a score. High self-esteem people will answer, give high marks for themselves in these categories. Okay, so back to the concept map. Notice we're saying success increases self-esteem. But what about the other relationship? Could it be that self-esteem increases the chances for success? And this was a big topic of controversy in psychology some decades ago, like in the 1990s. Educators were concerned about the underperformance of certain groups in school, and they were suspicious that perhaps the underperforming groups, they had low self-esteem. So they explained the poor success and the low self-esteem by saying maybe the low self-esteem is causing low levels of success. Well, if that's the case, then maybe if psychologists and teachers and family members, if they found other ways to just boost these young learners' self-esteem, that could then directly cause a greater success in school. And so there were lots of attempts to do that very thing. Unfortunately, the results of those experiments were not encouraging. Psychologists came to the view that there is not a direct connection between self-esteem and success. You can't just boost someone's self-esteem by telling them how great they are, etc., and that gets directly translated into better performance in school. And so today, psychologists tend to view it the other way around. It's success that triggers a boost in self-esteem, not the other way around. So this has implications for the school setting. So if we want to boost our self-esteem, we've got to find ways to achieve success. That's how you do it. You don't just have a bunch of people telling you you're amazing and you're just so awesome, and then that's going to somehow trigger success. What psychologists have found is the opposite. We find ways to achieve success, like using good study strategies and working hard and having a good work ethic. That's how you achieve success, and then the result of that will be higher self-esteem. Now notice what we're saying here is that there is not thought to be a direct connection between self-esteem and success. However, we are recognizing indirect effects of self-esteem. So high self-esteem can be positive for success in the following way. Again, that good feeling about the self, that's going to reduce the fear of failure during the struggle. So learning can often be a struggle. And for some individuals, the fact that they're struggling, they interpret that in a negative way. They think to themselves, oh, I'm dumb, I can't do this. And that is, it robs them of the motivation to continue. But for other individuals with higher self-esteem, they will endure the struggle. They will tolerate the struggle. They'll work through it. And if you can work through the struggle, you're more likely to achieve success, right? The outcome is going to be better because you are going to figure out how to solve the problem or do the task or whatever. And then you will get the benefit of having achieved success. So self-esteem does have a positive impact, making success more likely. It's just not a direct relationship, say psychologists, but it can work indirectly through our tolerance of the struggle that often accompanies learning. And in previous lessons, we talked about cultural differences in interpreting the struggle. In Eastern cultures, the idea was the struggle is a normal, accepted part of learning. And in fact, it can actually increase the motivation to continue to learn the very thing that you're struggling with. In Western cultures, there sometimes can be this attitude that if we're struggling, it means we're not smart. We're not intelligent, and that's a negative thing, and that can rob people of motivation to continue. Now let's take a look at the three concepts on the bottom here. Motivation. I wanted to point out here that just being motivated to do well in school, that's just not enough by itself. You've got to have an action plan. You've got to turn that motivation into a set of behaviors that will give you a chance to achieve success, like being motivated to find the good strategies and using them. That might take some executive control to keep us on track in our approach to our studies. So the executive control systems in the brain, these are the systems that allow us to plan and manage our time and to keep us on task and reduce distractions. Those are really important systems that can convert motivation into a good outcome of success. And with respect to good study strategies, of course, it is wise to use the best practices. Now, what are the best practices? Well, psychologists have been doing experiments in recent years to identify what the best study strategies really are. And unfortunately, there are still many students who use inferior study strategies. And it's interesting to note that the good study strategies tend to be the harder ones to use. They require more conformity and conscientiousness. And so it may well be that lots of students continue to use inferior study strategies because they're the easier ones. Unfortunately, they don't promote learning as well as the good study strategies. So you could pause the video here and or take a screen grab or whatever. Here we have the map with all the arrows sort of given their linking concepts. And this then shows the complexity of the psychology of success. There are lots of factors that can influence success. And so there's a lot to pay attention to in our approach to learning. But the good news, as we said earlier, was that if there's so many factors related to success, well, that gives us a chance to make modifications, to make adjustments, to improve the chances of success. And to wrap this up then, we're going to add these two other concepts that we've learned about. The idea that prior knowledge makes possible looking with new eyes. And so we learn this idea that as we get an education, we can see the same old world in a new way. And that makes going through life more enjoyable. We can understand things more deeply. We can look with new eyes. And related, that as we gain knowledge about the world, that can increase our curiosity. Again, as we learn about a topic, we will begin to perceive that we have gaps in our knowledge that remain, and the gaps in our knowledge can trigger curiosity. And curiosity is a motivational state. It makes us want to learn more about a topic. So as we learn more about something, we can look with new eyes upon the world, and we can start to experience more curiosity. Both of them are positive motivational forces in this sort of wheel of success. We want to get motivated. We want to use good study strategies, achieve success. Success will boost our self-esteem. That'll make us more capable of handling new challenges and so on, like during the struggle. And that'll keep us motivated to keep working through the tough stuff. This is just, there's a positive wheel here. So let's put some arrows on the map, sort of highlighting this wheel nature, the positive wheel of success. If we're using good study strategies, we'll achieve success. If we succeed, that'll boost our self-esteem. If we have higher self-esteem, it'll help us endure the struggle and keep us motivated to continue on. So we have this positive wheel. But look at what can happen if a wrench gets thrown into the gears in the positive wheel of success. Suppose we're using bad study strategies. Well, that can cause failure, and failure can reduce our self-esteem. And now we're not going to have the good feelings about ourselves. So when we experience the struggle, we don't like it. We're going to have negative thoughts about ourselves. We're going to hate the struggle. And this will undermine our motivation to continue learning. We're going to end up with not a lot of knowledge about the topic, so we can't see the world with new eyes. We won't have a chance to experience curiosity. And aside from those relationships, maybe we're sort of being lazy, we're not doing the work, or we don't care about doing quality work. Maybe we're a rebel. We're just not going to listen to the teacher. And we think, homework is for the birds. So these factors then are going to be contributing to failure. So the wheel of success can be jammed up in multiple ways. And this is the flip side of the positive news that there are so many factors related to success. It also means there are lots of factors that can lead to failure. Seeing all these factors that can contribute to failure, it does invite us to reflect on how we approach the learning process. Are we a rebel? Are we lazy? Do we have low motivation? Do we not like the struggle? Are we using bad study strategies? Well, if we're doing all these things, shouldn't be a surprise that we're not achieving the success that we might want. Now, the difficulty, of course, is that if this is an accurate characterization of a learner's state of mind, how do you restart the wheel of success? How do you get it going again? I mean, can you just tell yourself to be less lazy? Can you just tell yourself you're an amazing person, or have other people just tell you that? How are you going to increase your motivation? How are you going to change your attitude towards the struggle? So it seems like it might be difficult to get the positive wheel of success going. How do you get it started? My recommendation is to get on the wheel right here with good study strategies. Even if you have low motivation to learn about a particular topic in a particular course in school, if you just use these good strategies, you'll have the best chance of achieving success, which then has the payoff of boosting self-esteem. You'll be able to handle the struggle more effectively, maintain your motivation. And once you get the wheel starting to turn, then you can start to evaluate and make adjustments in other areas. Maybe you want to pay attention to executive control in your study situation. Are you managing time well? Are you reducing distractions when you're studying? And then conscientiousness. Are you just doing sort of the minimum, or maybe you start to do really quality work, whereas before you weren't? Maybe you start doing what's recommended of you more often. Once the wheel gets going, it may be easier then to make further positive adjustments to our attitudes and our beliefs and our behaviors. But to get the wheel started in the first place, my recommendation would be the study strategies. Start using them as soon as possible.